test. Hey guys, Chris, ready to go? Are you buttoned up on this Thursday before Memorial Day weekend? Ready to record a podcast?
I am. We take.
Yeah. Anything on your mind you don't want to share on the show that you want to share only with the YouTube crowd?
I'm tired. If you can see it in my
Tired?
eyes.
Why are you tired, Chris?
Well, I don't talk about it much on the podcast. I don't want people to hate me, but I do CrossFit, and I had a tough day at CrossFit today. So it was a really rough day.
Okay.
I don't talk about it much because there's this aversion to CrossFitters because there's some people that consider ourselves to be like a superior workout agenda or something. So
I don't
anyway.
think there's I don't think it's negative connotation about CrossFit. I think it's just if you guys are going to go ruin your limbs and your back and die at age 45 from a heart attack, have fun.
Yeah, but my biceps look great when I'm in the coffin.
But your biceps are going to look good. Yes! No, don't use it. Don't use it. Yes! No, that wasn't good. Yes. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 57 of the Paid Search podcast. My name's Jason Rothman. I'm here with my very fit, trim partner, Chris Schaefer. Chris, how's it going?
I'm doing well. That was, I went back and listened to the very first episode, and It was so shocking, Jason, when you said, "Hey guys, this is Jason Rothman with Chris Schaefer for the Paid Search podcast." You were so timid. It was so funny. I mean, if anybody goes back, you have to go to our website to listen to the first episode if you weren't around for that. But it was so funny. And then I gave you a little push. I said, Jason, let's go with some energy. And then the yes started, because the yes was not original. That was not an original thing. So,
nope. Hey, it's been working out though, Chris. So we got a nice email from a listener today. He's on episode number 7. We're on episode number 57. So if anyone wants to go back and listen to those and get more than you can get in the podcast place on iTunes and Stitcher, homepage, paidsearchpodcast.com. We have every episode there. Next week, we have a little bit of an interesting show we'll talk about later. And last week, we had an interesting show, a great debate. And today, we're going to go with one of our more straightforward informational shows and talk about the segment. I call them buttons. I call the row below the tabs, Chris, campaigns, ad group settings tabs. I call the row below that buttons. That's what I call them. But anyway, the segment button. And it's interesting, Chris. We have not talked about this a year into our show, 57 shows in, but it is something I use a ton. But it is kind of an advanced technique. So why don't you tell us about kind of what the segment button can do for people, and then also, do you agree with my description of it that it's kind of an advanced technique?
Yeah, Jason, I do agree that it's an advanced technique. I do think it's something that most people completely ignore. So the fact that people ignore it and you don't have to use it, I think makes it an advanced feature. I think that's kind of the definition of an advanced feature. It's optional. It gives more information than you actually need. So the usage of it is this. If you've never used it before, it basically is a way to gather more information about your AdWords campaign, your ad group, your keywords, and Jason, does it work on the ad tab? I don't think I've ever used it on the ad tab. I don't think
I don't use it much there, but there is a segment button there.
There is? I didn't. Okay, well, break it down. I don't think I ever use it, but anyway, basically every aspect of your AdWords campaign, you can quote unquote segment the data, and we're going to talk about each of those data types that you can segment out. And Jason, I'm sure you use this constantly. I do, especially if I'm doing an AdWords audit or I'm looking for an answer to something.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this type of discussion, Jason, is going to be completely worthless to someone who doesn't really have any curiosity about the inner workings of their keywords or their campaign or anything. If you don't really want to break down time of day or network or click type or devices or, other things like that, you wouldn't really find a lot of value in this. I think in order to make a value out of this feature, you're going to need some curiosity or some questions about what your campaign is doing. And I think that's what it really comes down to.
Right, Chris. I think an apt metaphor is this is similar to like if you just want to see the top line data, see how many clicks you got, see how many conversions you got. You can get that with the columns uh, on the face level, campaigns tab, ads tab, whatever. And that's like if a doctor goes into you and does an X-ray, they can see your bone, how many ribs you have, and stuff. But with segments, you can really tear open that data and see. Okay, you got 10 clicks, what kind of clicks did you get, stuff like that. So it's like a doctor ripping open your stomach and just putting his fingers in your kidney and seeing what's going on in there.
Wow, that's so visceral. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. So Chris, um uh so the thing about segments is it breaks down your data even further. And exactly what you're saying, Chris, if you don't care, if you just want to see your clicks and conversion rate and whatever, go for it on the main pages. But if you have questions that you need answers to and you want to dig in, use these segments and they'll give you those answers. This is pretty much, Chris, I think in most cases, as deep as you can go.
Yeah.
With a lot of the data. There's nothing beyond this. So you should be able to get an answer out of this. And then the final thing before we break these down, Chris, is like you mentioned, you can segment your data on the campaigns tab, ad groups, ads, and keywords tabs. You can do it everywhere. But I'd say most of the time, Chris, I'm on the campaigns page when I do this. Is it the same for you?
Yeah. Typically it's at the campaign, sometimes at the ad group, and then rarely at the keyword level. So yeah, I mean, typically it's a higher level type of information. I want to know, what is the information about this section of my account? Not necessarily. It's very rare do I need to break out. Now, I will say one thing I like to do is I do segment when I can, when the options are available, segment some of my search query data. I'll actually look, if I'm investigating a certain click or a certain conversion, I'll actually take the segment data and break out what I can about the search queries, which is really cool.
Right. Now, getting into each segment and way to segment your data here, Chris, the first one as an option that you have is time. And I was just trying to use some of these on my platform here. And a lot of them, it says that you cannot break down your data this way at the campaigns page, but you can download the data. And honestly, I always look at time on the on the dimensions tab.
Yeah.
That's where I look at time. But if you want to look at time, you can download it and get a breakdown of your day, week, hours, quarters, years, day of the week, and hour of the day. But I think most people, Chris, might prefer using the dimensions tab for that. A huge one, Chris, the next one is segmenting your data in terms of conversions. And this is super, super powerful. A lot of times you look at your campaign and you say, oh, I had 100 clicks and 10 conversions. I had a 10% conversion rate, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Sometimes you want to know, well, what kinds of conversions am I getting? Am I getting phone calls? Am I getting lead form submissions? And Chris, another way I use this is to, if we set up like website call tracking and we've been running for a couple of weeks and I see all these conversions in there, but no website call conversions, then I know something's wrong. Or if a client has asked me, hey, it seems like our conversions are down this month. What's going on? And the search term quality has kind of stayed the same and the click volume has stayed the same. I'm thinking, did they change the code on their website, or are reported conversions going down? And then I can see where that maybe of conversions dropped off or the type of conversion. And I can pin it down to, oh, your website call tracking is not working anymore. So that's how I use conversion names to segment my data. How do you use the conversion segment there, Chris?
Yeah, this is basically a standard for me to check something that I'm seeing a drop or I'm seeing a rise in a conversion volume for a certain campaign or ad group or something like that. There's really no other way to say what's driving the conversions, because the conversion on AdWords is just a number, right? You can have campaign A received 20 conversions. You have there's not really any other way I know to know how many of those 20 conversions were conversion A, B, or C. I mean, unless you do something that requires 3 or 4 clicks, go to the campaigns tab, and way more complicated than it should be. This is the only way that you would be able to say, out of those 20, 11 were this, and then 9 were the other thing. So this is incredibly important, because then there's information from there. There's conversion rate on those types of conversions, which is really important. Maybe one type converts a lot better than the other.
Right.
This is when you start trying to figure out this information, this is where you make better decisions. This is where you get the data that can really push you to make decisions on, landing page optimizations, or, small changes in your AdWords campaign that you wouldn't derive without this data. So I think it's very critical.
Yeah. Chris, this is stuff that allows people like you and me who do this all the time to get 15, 20, 25% conversion rates sometimes, where another person managing the same campaign with the same keywords, same landing pages might get 5%, just because we know where to look, and then how to optimize from there. Another example of the conversions here, Chris, is I had a client who wanted to start running ads to his website instead of a landing page we had set up for him. And the conversion rate went up. His website was doing better. But what I showed him breaking down the data is, yes, your conversion rate overall went up and you're getting more conversions, but the lead form conversion rate shot way up, Chris, and the calls shot way down. Or down a little bit. So I asked him, well, you're a mover, what's better for you? Someone filling out a form or getting someone one-on-one on the phone? And he's like, obviously the phone. So I was like, okay, well, then let's think about what we want to do here, because the top level story of the conversion rate went up doesn't tell the whole story. Another thing, Chris, is, another thing is on the devices page. You can look at like mobile, computers, tablets, and see which type of conversions those sources are leading to. So maybe your lead form on mobile gets a conversion rate that's way, way worse than the desktop, and you try to fix that. Or maybe you notice you're not getting calls from the desktop, so you try to fix that. So it just gives you a ton of information that you can kind of analyze and make smart decisions on.
Yeah.
And just like you, conversions, I would say, are probably the most that's the way I use the segment button the most.
Yeah. One thing we talk about in the podcast a lot is search intent, or value of your traffic, right? The traffic quality. So you mentioned devices, I know that's not in the order of the segment here, but I'll jump to device and kind of give an example of how you might use that. For devices, if you want to segment the devices out, you can do that in the settings tab under the sub tab for devices, right? You can get that at the ad group level or the campaign level.
Right.
Okay. But what's really cool is you can segment devices out at the keyword level. And I believe also the search terms level as well. Let me see. Yes, you can segment it out at the device level. So here's what you can look at. You can tell this type of search is happening on a mobile device or a computer or a tablet, and you can see the type of search they're doing and see how well they click through, how well they convert. This gives even more insight into, was the person sitting on their phone, or were they sitting at their computer, and what type of response did they do when they, when they clicked on the ad. I think this is another level into user intent and user, what the user is thinking when they do that search and they click on your ad.
And I bet you, Chris, the super powerful near me searches for lead generation campaigns, foot doctors near me, dentists near me. I bet those happen a lot from mobile, if I had to bet.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an interesting use of the device. So since we're on device, let's go ahead and jump down there, Chris, that you can segment your data by device, just like you're saying, mobiles or the redheaded stepchild that we beat with a frying pan every night. Tablets. No one likes tablets anymore, Chris. It's the amount of traffic super low now, and they just don't perform. I don't know what tablet users do. It's like they're an upper class of people.
Well, the way I think of it is this: it's not your phone, right? So you're not going to call from it. So immediately you lose the possibility of getting a click to call.
Great point. Great point.
And second, it's not a keyboard. Most people aren't going to have a keyboard attached to their tablet. So they're going to be less likely to sit there and tap out, some form. So you lose both initiatives of, the mobile device they might call, great. The computer, they're more likely to fill out a form because it's easy to just type it out on the keyboard. Great. Device or the tablet, neither one.
So Chris, what do you think they're doing?
I think it's a Russian conspiracy to spend our hard-earned business owners' money by using tablets, and they're under the radar. Yeah. Everybody just thinks tablets are trash. Yeah, that's what it is.
It's also hard to fill out a lead form when your left hand is in your pants.
Because that's what tablet users do.
That's how they sit. They just sit there, hand in the pants, Cheeto dust all over their fingers, lounging on the couch, reading about their favorite reality show. So tablet users, very disappointing, at least for business and consumer lead generation campaigns. But don't take our word for it, Chris. As we always say, check your data. And you can do that by looking at the device segmentation at any level you want to look at it. So look at it. So that's a great way to break down your data. Yeah, so it's just a great way to break down your data. The next one, Chris, is network, and then I'm also going to include network with search partners. So basically, this tells you, this is super duper important. It tells you where your traffic's coming from in terms of what network. So Chris, why don't you break down the different networks, and then I've got a super bonus tip for people about the search partners.
Bonus tip. Yeah. So basically, I'll tell you the breakdown by network, Jason, I barely ever click this because what you're looking at here is basically search versus display or video. Okay. And honestly, I don't ever run the search with the display select campaign type. That's the only time you're really going to need to use the network segmenting, is because you want to see how much display is being spent in your search plus display select campaign. I think that's really the only use that I've ever had.
It is, Chris, and it's very rare for you because you never use search with display select. But think about people who don't have your intellect or physique out there, who are new to AdWords. They're listening to our show, Chris. They're catching up. This might be their first episode. Yeah. They might have been given instructions, possibly, let's not name names, to run search with display select, and they maybe have never thought about it. So if that's you listening out there, click on network segmentation and see what percent of maybe what you thought was a search campaign mostly is coming from display. Because sometimes, Chris, it's a very unproportional number. So.
Yeah. And one thing I will mention that is useful, if you're running a video campaign, a YouTube campaign, you can break out and see how much of your traffic has been viewed and clicked on in the Google Display Network and how much is on YouTube itself. So right. You may not be aware, but if you just default everything and just set up a YouTube campaign to run, it will default to the display network as well, which are shown on, your video can be shown embedded on some site or something like that as an ad. So that's important to know as well. You may find out that, wow, these are doing really well, or they're doing very poorly. I found some really useful information there.
Right. Now, Chris, getting into network with search partners, it's going to give you the same breakdown of data, but the only difference here is that it's going to break down Google search and then Google search partners. And Google search is google.com or closely related sites like that. Maybe like google.ca or stuff like that, Chris, the different countries, but it's actually on Google, whatever country you're in. And then the search partners are websites that put Google search engine tools on their website, and people search those websites using a Google kind of search engine for specifically that website, and Google runs ads. And Chris, this is one of the most, I'd say, misunderstood aspects of AdWords. There's a negative connotation around the search partners, and you and I could go into reasons on why people put out that negative propaganda about it. But to me, there's nothing wrong with search partners, because the only reason your ad is going to show is if someone is searching for a keyword in your area when the time you want your ads to run. So search partners should do well. But if you want to verify that and see how it does versus google.com searches, data with this Google network plus search partners segmentation, and you can verify for yourself. And Chris, what I see most often is that maybe network with search partners is maybe 5-10% at the most of the traffic, usually around 5%. And the conversion data is either the same or sometimes better.
Yeah. Typically, the search partners are not a drain on the campaign. The only time I usually ever turn them off is if I'm super strapped for budget and the client really likes to see themselves on google.com. They're searching it and they're emailing me, hey, I don't see myself. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put every bit of the budget that I can towards google.com to make sure they can see themselves and they're getting as much search impression share as possible. But typically, with no interference from the client, I usually leave them on. They usually do. They usually do pretty well. So
now, one interesting thing.
I wanted to say one thing, listeners. I just have to. I'm going to add like just a 3-4 minute rant at the end of this podcast. Jason, I just made a note. I just want to talk about that search partners thing.
I know you do, but please don't name any names. I don't like making enemies.
No. I'm not gonna name any. I'm just gonna talk a little bit. One quick little thing. I'm not gonna name any names. So stay tuned at the end of the podcast. I'm gonna quickly go over one quick rant about the search partners. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that. Chris, the last thing about search partners, and guys, this is why you listen to the show. No one else is as deep into AdWords every single day as me and Chris. We're deep in the webs here. And Chris, I honestly don't even know how I found this, but it's super important. And honestly, I wish just something, I just want to get recognized for what I did for humanity here. I either want to be, I want to get a medal from Google, or I want to walk outside, get my mail one morning, and get assassinated by a guy dressed in all black on a speed motorbike. And I want them to take me out, because damn it, I want some recognition here, because maybe they fixed it by now. But what I noticed, Chris, on some call only campaigns, and I looked at all my clients doing it, is that call only on the search partners network actually was not leading to any calls. And the clicks column versus the phone call column, there were no phone calls in the phone call column. And that's going to happen sometimes with call only, Chris. Someone will click on the phone number, but they won't go all the way through with the call. Most of the time I see call to click ratios of maybe 60 to 90% is normal. Not every click is going to become a phone call, but this was like 0 over like tons and tons of clicks. So for me on call only, I turn off the search partners network and I run only on Google, because I've noticed the search partners network doesn't bring in calls. Maybe they fixed that bug. Maybe it was only my data. I don't know. But for call only, I've just been sticking to the google.com and not the search partners network. And if we could get some feedback from anyone to check their own data, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. Just for anyone who's hiring the assassin, that was Jason that noticed that and then told me. So be sure and put your hit out for the right guy. So anyway, the next one, this one's pretty straightforward. Experiment, right? The experiment, is it not the next one? Did I skip one?
I use ClickType all the time, and I'll give you a great example, Chris. But go ahead, break down what ClickType is for everybody, if you have time.
No,
if it's not too much of a burden to you.
Okay, so ClickType is useful. It is useful, but I don't use it that much because I don't really care who clicks my site links and stuff like that, because I don't really, there's no way to bid them up. I mean, you can add them and stuff. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Chris,
you got so much to learn, young grasshopper.
Okay, I want to hear.
Or old gray.
Old rabbit? I don't know.
Old gray. Arthritis grasshopper. That's you.
I am not that. I'm still in my 30s, jerk. Okay. All right. So ClickType is a way to segment your clicks by whether they clicked on the ad, they clicked on a site link, or they clicked on a mobile click to call, or there's even additional product like product listing things that you can add now. What is that? The pricing,
Click to message.
click to message, right? There's several things
Yeah,
that
there's
people can.
pricing
Yeah,
now.
the pricing
There's a
stuff.
few
There's
things.
a lot of things. So you can. This is how, if you are wondering, what are people clicking on? They clicking on my ad? Not all the time. Sometimes a very small percentage, a fraction of a percent of people will click the site link. Jason, tell me
Okay,
why I
Chris,
should
that
care.
is
Because I don't care that much.
okay. So that is the way it should be. Is most of your clicks should be coming from the headline. But let me just break down some data for you, Chris. The first thing is I have a new campaign, or at least in the last 30 days. It's a small volume, but I'm looking at the two of them came from site links. So that's almost 10%, significant. Another way you can use this click type feature, Chris, is on the ad extensions tab on the site links area. And you can see if someone asks you, well, do people click on site links? How many did this one get? How many did that one get? You can see for each site link how many clicks the site link got. And finally, Chris, this is where it all comes together. I had a client, I've talked about this before on here. Data started tanking, didn't know what was going on. We were getting killed. Things were going bad. And I break down the click types to see what's going on. Why aren't things like, I can't figure anything else why anything would be wrong. And we had the location extension turned on, and 30% of his traffic was clicking on directions to this business. And we were able to see that something fishy was going on that location extension, and we ended up turning it off because 30% of clicks that will not lead to conversion should not be going to directions to this business for a moving company where people don't visit. And Chris, I would not have been able to figure that out and save this campaign if it was not for click types.
Okay. That I completely understand. My argument was, why the heck do I care about how many people are clicking on my site links? Like that was my argument. But I completely understand.
You don't care, but what if it's not going good and you end up seeing that 80% of people are clicking on your site link?
What are you going to do?
Like,
You're not going to take it off.
bug.
Best practices for Google AdWords, add site links.
We took off, we had to take off location extensions. We could
Well,
not.
that's location extension. That's not a site link. That's different.
Now, let me give one theoretical thing that maybe I should start doing, but I've never done, Chris, is maybe in your site links, you can see which ones get good click-through rates on those site links and use that for ad copy ideas.
Huh. Okay.
Huh.
Oh, don't say huh. You
Hey,
just thought about that. You just thought about that.
Oh, no, I admitted it. That's something I've never done, but that's why we expand our minds here on the show, Chris. So
Yeah.
Getting into the real next one here, going to experiment, Chris. I had actually never clicked on the experiment segmentation button until today. Had you?
A couple times when I was running experiments for clients, but very rarely.
So when I try to look at my experiment data, I see it at the very bottom there near total search, total display. And then I also go into the actual experiment and it gives you a nice breakdown of experiment versus original. Are you saying you just look at that with the segment? It tells you which one was in the experiment, which one was outside of the experiment in terms of data lines?
Yeah, because at the bottom, it'll show all campaigns. And I don't want to compare all campaigns. I want to compare this one campaign to its experiment.
Show you all experiment.
Yeah, so that's the only reason. So basically, we didn't explain it, but basically, the experiment segmentation shows you experiment versus control. That's what it is. And in Google's instance, they call it outside experiment. Is another word for the control, the non-changed campaign that you are experimenting against. So that's the idea there.
So, Chris, we got 3 more segments here, and I just want to really focus on top versus other. But before we do that, view type, it's not something I've used before. It looks to be something about the True View YouTube thing. I guess it tells you, actually, that's pretty useful. It tells you what part of YouTube, and you gave us a great breakdown a few weeks ago, the different types of YouTube ads you can run before the video or sometimes during the video, a little stream. Video discovery, which I guess is a search on so that's actually pretty cool. You can see what type of YouTube ads are showing up. The next to last one, or do you have anything to add on that view type, Chris?
No, you just might be surprised to find out that, a lot of your Well, you may not be surprised, but you're getting a lot of impressions for the video discovery, but you end up getting a lot more views and clicks and stuff for the in stream. So you may not realize that. So I definitely encourage to at least look at it. You may be under the impression of, where all that money's going to.
Chris, +1 annotations. I think out of respect, maybe let's just not say anything about this.
Yeah, let's
you don't use it.
No.
Use it in the future, and
yeah, we'll be nice.
Okay, and then finally, Chris, top verse other. This is pretty cool, and this can be used as a fat palm across the face to anybody that says showing up number 1 brings you better traffic than showing up 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Why don't you explain that, Chris?
Yeah, well, I actually have a bit of a problem with this because Jason, the segmentation works like this. For our listeners first, let's get into this. The segmentation works like this. It has Google search and then top and Google search other. Okay, so one segmentation will show that it's I assume the top of Google.
Well, I've got a breakdown, Chris. It says this row, the top, Google search top. This row shows how your ads perform when they appear above search results on Google search or shopping. So the way I take that, Chris, is in the top 4 at the top, above the map, above the organic listings.
Okay. Because they never changed. Here's the thing: a year ago they took the side ads off and they called them other, and now it really should be top and bottom. But they never changed it. So it's really
Would you be a bottom?
Yeah, I don't. I'm gonna avoid that. I don't know what that even means, but basically the top and bottom is really what it should refer to, but they call bottom other. So if you're looking at this data, just understand you're comparing top to bottom listing. So above organic and below organic, and no surprises really. I mean, I 95% of your spend will be, at least for, most of my campaigns are going to be in that top. People just don't go to the bottom and click on the ads.
Yeah. So top versus bottom. If you get data from the bottom and you're showing up maybe on a national campaign, you're trying a really low bid strategy and you're able to get away with it in position 5, 6 because there's so much search volume. That's the only way I can picture it, Chris. But it's hard to run a full campaign and get a lot of action. Chris, I take that back because some things are super expensive, cost per click wise, and you can live at the bottom with some cheaper clicks.
But Jason, here's what bothers me: my bottom listings, my Google search other listings show 1.4, right? And then my Google search top listings show 1.2. Okay, in the campaign I'm looking at right now. Why does it say 1.4 and 1.2? That's assuming, does it list?
Are you talking about position?
Yeah, position. So why? So I assume what Google's doing is they're saying top position in the bottom quadrant and top position in the top quadrant, right? That's super confusing. It should really be the top should start at 1, 2, 3, 4, and the bottom should be 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
Now, what I'd love to know, Chris, that's a great point. And it sounds like there's someone at the wide, massive Google empire just cashing that paycheck every 2 weeks, and they thought they fired him. They moved out of his office, but he's sitting in a closet somewhere. Getting that paycheck because he's not doing his job. Whoever manages it's a great tool, Chris, and it could be great, but I think they definitely need to update it to reflect the way the search results look now. The thing I would love to know, Chris, is overall how conversion rates and cost per conversions tie together versus like the top of the results versus the bottom of the page, because this would kind of dispel the notion that people clicking the number 1 ad are a better source of traffic than people clicking 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I just a quick run through some of my data. A campaign that spends tens of thousands of dollars. I look top versus bottom, and 0 conversions for bottom, and a bazillion for the top. So I mean, it's
now is there a lot of clicks at the bottom?
A percentage, 1%, 2% maybe.
Oh, so it's not really fair.
Yeah, no, it's not very much. Comparison. I mean, this client really pushes to be towards the top, but
You know what I would love to see here, Chris, and yeah, so that top versus bottom, most of our traffic's probably going to be above the results, and you can't get much data from it. But I would love if they kind of expanded this, Chris, and showed you segment by position.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wouldn't that not be the
Oh,
coolest
that
thing
would
ever?
be,
Like
yeah.
position 1 versus 2 versus 3,
Yeah, and
and
maybe
so on.
it's in the new alpha. Maybe it's coming in the new alpha. I don't know. I don't know. It'd be great, but yes, absolutely. I'd love some more data about positioning because it'd be great. It definitely would be great.
Yes. Well, you know what else is great, Chris, is our podcast here, the Paid Search Podcast. And next week, we're going to be going over to have an interview, and we're going to go to the dark side, the blue
Oh boy.
side, the FB side, the Facebook side. I put the bat signal out there, Chris. I asked for one person on the planet who was getting lead generation conversions and leads from Facebook, just one. And it only took them 2 months, but we finally got someone who's brave enough to make that claim. And we're going to have an interview with someone who says he's running Facebook ads and is getting conversions. Now, Chris, it's good cop, bad cop, as it always is in our interviews, I think. And I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be charming. I'm going to ask questions about impressions and brand awareness and all that. And then I think you are going to be a little tougher and really dig in for our audience here about, can you get leads? And I'm talking phone calls and lead forms from AdWords. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that interview.
I have my doubts and I have my reservations about the value of it, but he has shown us some numbers. He was very kind to show us some of his stats on his end, and it does appear that way. But yeah, it'll be good. It'll be great. Basically, we'll put them through the grill, and for the benefit of our users, we'll see. What do we think about this whole Facebook thing? Is it really worth all it's cracked up to be? So
we'll preface this saying I tried Facebook yet again this week.
Oh yeah.
I tried LinkedIn, and
LinkedIn. Oh man,
LinkedIn, and this was for a personal project, and I'll just tell you this: I no longer am running those campaigns after a few days, and I also purchased more Google stock. So that should let you know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So, Chris, anything to add about segments or anything like that as we take ourselves out here?
I do have, as promised, my quick rant about the search partners.
All right, Chris, just be nice.
It'll take a second. This is not about Google. This is not about Google. I'm going to talk to those companies.
No, Chris, but don't make enemies with those companies, please.
There are companies out there, ladies and gentlemen, that I will not name, but they know who they are if they do this tactic. And I want to preface, if you have an AdWords campaign or you are an AdWords manager, I'm going to give you a free tip here about a panic call that you might get from your client or your boss or something like that, a very strange voicemail that someone might leave. Okay, and it goes like this.
This is actually a good service announcement, Chris.
Yeah, this is true. I have a recorded session of this. I happen to have call recording, and I have a recorded session of this happening to one of my clients. And it just, I turn red and I get mad. I'm like, this is such BS. And it goes like this. Someone goes to WebMD, okay, and then types in local plumber. Okay, or they go to some other.
If English isn't your first language, if you got a bad stomach ache, and
I mean, it's a stretch. They know it's a stretch, but they do this on purpose. They go to some search network partner, okay, that you would not do a off-topic search for. So it might be something like, a cooking search engine. It might be something like a health search engine, and they'll do some obscure search for a professional service.
Yeah, you could be on one of those recipe websites, and instead of typing in what everyone would type in on there, chicken, blueberry muffins, whatever, to try and find a recipe, these something like Moving Companies, Oklahoma City.
Okay, so great. That no harm done. It works that way. But here's what they do. They take a picture. They take a screenshot of the ads that show up. Then those jerks will click on the ad, spend the advertiser's money, and call the phone number and say, may I talk to the person who's managing your AdWords campaign? They'll say, oh, well, blah, 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 either they're in-house or they're contract or something, or maybe no one's managing it. And then they'll proceed to tell the marketing manager or whoever they can get on the phone and talk to and say, sir, I just wanted to let you know that, I found your ad on blah, blah, blah website. I did a search and, I can send you an email of it or something, I just wonder, are you aware of this? It looks like the person who's managing your campaign has enabled search partners and they really shouldn't be doing that. They must not understand the way that AdWords works. It's absolute scam level type of material. It is entirely, Jason and I can both attest, the search network partners is a great way to get traffic. And when you abuse it and work backwards to try and make it look like it's a bad system, you're the problem, not the search network partners.
Yeah.
And if you ever get this call, it's one of those people, and you can tell the person, that this is entirely a proper tactic. This is in best practice. There's nothing that the campaign's doing wrong.
Yeah, let's look at the data. I'll show you the data like we just described in this episode. It'll help you break down the data.
Yeah. And so, that's it. That's the facts. I wish there was a segmentation for search network partners that I could look at the domains that are pulling in, because you would see that it's like, ask.com or, different stuff like that you're getting this stuff from. It's never.
Yeah. By the way, I believe AOL is no longer, I think they're with Yahoo or whatever, but it's a good way to think about it. Think about some of the bigger, you go over to Grandpa's house and you get on his computer and you're like, Grandpa, Ask Jeeves? What is that? Why is that on? Oh, I haven't used my computer in 10 years. I don't change it. I just go there and I search for things. And so Google makes a deal with companies like that, legit search engine companies whose search engine products are no longer, they can't compete with Google. And Google's like, you know what? Here's access to a Google certified search engine. You can use it on your website. When people search your website, just hypothetically say it's Ask Jeeves. Hypothetically, we'll give them Google results and Google ads and you'll get an ad share. It's a totally legitimate thing, Chris.
Yeah.
Now you got me mad thinking about these people, because it really is scammy. It really is something that it wastes money, the advertisers' money. It scares people about AdWords. And then, Chris, one thing for me is I literally say, I look at Google, my relationship with them as a partnership on my website. Like, I respect Google and try to work with them. And these are people that are making Google look bad because they're abusing the system. So it is scammy. It's scummy. And people who do it, yeah, like even the employees who, I'm just trying to get a paycheck or whatever, they should be ashamed, Chris, honestly.
Yeah.
There's honest ways to make a living, and this is not one of them. So if you're an AdWords manager or anyone out there, if you're the business owner, now you know where that call is coming from. And if you're an AdWords manager, now you know how to handle that call you'll probably inevitably get from your client. Now you can show them the data.
Yeah.
They're being told that.
Cool. All right. Well, that's it. That's my rant. That's my rant. Thanks for letting me share it. Appreciate you guys listening. We've gone way over our time again,
Chris. So
as always.
So when Chris has a little extra to share, it's all good to go over. But yeah, 45 minutes. That's too long here, Chris. So everyone, thanks for listening. We'll be back next Monday with episode number 58, a highly anticipated interview on the Paid Search Podcast, and we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.